Welcome to the Town of Arlington Redevelopment Board meeting on August 10th, 2026. I'd like to call this meeting to order. My name is Ken Lau. I'm the chair of the ARB. Can the other members please introduce yourselves? Simon Steve.
Steve Revelak.
Vincent Baudouin.
Michelle Shortsleeve.
Shayna Corman Houston.
We're also here with Claire Richter and Sarah Suarez.
Thank you.
I want to first introduce that today's meeting is set up as a working session. The public is welcome to join and be part of listening in, but there will be no interaction between the public and the board for this meeting. We're trying to get as much discussion amongst ourselves to go over some of these topics. If you have questions, please send an email or a letter to us, and we will respond to that in that nature there. But we want to spend some time just being able to focus on just talking amongst ourselves about certain topics, so we're not interrupted by other aspects. I appreciate that very much.
Is your microphone on?
Mike, do you hear me? Or I'm usually pretty loud, so I'm not. The first agenda is to review the meeting minutes from July 20th. Do any of the board members have any changes? Steve?
None here.
Vince?
I wasn't here, I'll abstain.
Michelle?
No changes.
Sarah?
None.
I mean, Jen?
None.
Okay. That one was the first one, right? Was this on? Okay, that's the first one. Okay, I have no comments on the first one. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Steve?
Second.
No.
Oh, yes.
Vince?
This is July 20, is that right? Abstaining.
It is. No, it's June 15th.
Oh. My apologies.
July 20th.
Which is it?
I'm sorry. It's July 20th.
Okay. Let me restart this again. Do any board members have any changes to the July 20th meeting, not the June 15th?
No changes, Mr. Chair.
Vince? Michelle?
No changes.
Shanna?
No changes.
Okay. This is the only one, right?
This is the only set.
Okay, I do have some changes then on this one, which is July 20th. On page 7, we're talking about the project 12 Lachlan Ave.
Yep.
On page 7, halfway near the bottom of the page, it states the chair expressed concerns about airflow in the basement. I'd like to scratch the word basement and replace it with parking garage. And then on the next paragraph down, the chair said that any solutions, I'd like to cross out if any solutions to the issues raised at this meeting results in architectural changes. Can you take out the word "the" and add "raised" at this meeting?
The solution to the issue results in application of the board. Say it again, Ken, I'm sorry.
Okay. The chair said that any solutions to the issues raised at this meeting resulting in architectural changes, then we want this to come back to the board
Okay.
with any of these changes. I just want to clarify, that just the changes.
Yeah, any of these.
That's all I had.
All right.
Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
Thank you. Steve?
Yes.
Vince, you're a no?
Pass.
Pass? Michelle?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm a yes too. Thank you very much. All right, next on the agenda is a working session with the Affordable Housing Overlay Committee to discuss proposed overlay district. Is it just you two here today, or?
Beth Elliott is here. She's also a member.
Okay, and
I expect more people may come in.
okay, like I said earlier, If you're on the committee, then you're okay to come back and discuss with us, okay? But if you're not in the committee, I wish you to just give me questions later on. I just want to keep this as a working session between just us and the committee, okay?
Yes.
So can you just, don't let me know who's on the committee and not on the committee that's bringing up questions, okay?
Just Carol and Beth and myself
For now.
right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And Sarah.
And Sarah.
And Sarah.
Sorry. Has multiple functions, multiple functionality.
So, Claire, you want to say anything?
Sure. I would just like to remind folks that meetings of the Affordable Housing Overlay District Committee are open to the public. The committee may and often does invite public comment during their meeting, and certainly any written comments to the Overlay Housing District Committee may be submitted through the committee's contact, who is Sarah Suarez, who's sitting here to my right this evening. You can get in contact with her for her information if you want to communicate in writing. And then we have the co-chairs of the AHUD here this evening.
Thank you. Carol, you want to make an introduction, or Laura? Okay. Could you just state your names first?
I'm Laura Wiener. I'm a co-chair of the Affordable Housing Overlay District Committee with Carol Kowalski, who's my fellow co-chair. Thank you for your time tonight. We are looking forward to this discussion and hearing feedback on our proposal. Our goal is to leave this meeting with a proposal that has the general consensus between both of our boards, and that we can take to the public in the fall for input from the public. There are two parts to the proposal: a draft bylaw and a list of properties that will be in the overlay district. We want to focus first on the list of sites. We want to know if you want to remove or add any sites to the list, and if you have any concerns about that approach. We took a site-specific approach as an alternative to the all-over-town approach of the first proposal, which came about 2 years ago before the board, because we thought concentrating on the major corridors offered more opportunities for multifamily housing because of bigger lots, more underutilized properties, and better access to transit. After discussing the list of sites, we'd like to hear if you have any thoughts on the proposed bylaw, which you have seen before and discussed with us. At the end of this discussion, we hope to have a draft proposal to take to the public in the fall to get feedback from the public. Our outreach activities will include a table at Town Day, 2 public meetings, 1 in person and 1 on Zoom, and an online questionnaire. And we will report back to you on the results at the end of probably at the end of the fall, I think. And now I'm going to turn it over to Carol Kowalski and Sarah Suarez to discuss the list of sites. And I'm going to move because I'm probably right in front of them.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm Carol Kowalski, co-chair for we really do appreciate you making the time to give us some feedback on the sites tonight. And to review for some of the newer members, to introduce for some of the newer members, to review for more veteran members, the committee considered locations that the planning department and past planning studies prepared for Arlington had identified as candidates for redevelopment. We then broke up into groups and scouted the locations to arrive at a preliminary list of sites, to which we recently added churches, considering the act this year. I'm seeing head nods, thank you. So we'll see what happens with that, but nonetheless, we think they should all be included. We recommend they be included. And so we agreed at the last meeting. We've been working under this assumption of some criteria, very few, but some important criteria, that a parcel or adjoining parcels large enough for a feasible affordable housing development is one criterion. Usually large enough to be eligible for low-income housing tax credit development. The second criterion was sites that don't already have existing homes or apartments, except for sites where significant additional homes could be added. And the third one is sites near bus, walking paths, bike lanes, or schools, or stores, or services. So we'd like to take a brief look at some of the sites on the story map that Sarah prepared and provided to the board. And then we'll ask to take a more in-depth look at the sites to get your feedback, please. So, Sarah, do you want to talk about these sites? Or we actually, if you've all acquainted yourself with the story map, we're not going to, force you to sit through it right now. But if you haven't seen it, it includes pictures of most of the sites and corresponding with the map, and you can click on any of them and get a closer look at each of them. It's a great tool. This is a good example.
I think going over it quickly would be helpful for some of the newer members of the board and just get a refresh.
Sure.
I don't think you have to get too far in depth.
Yeah,
in this.
I've looked through many of them, but helpful to hear your thoughts.
Criteria that you used to ensure sites.
Yeah. You mean besides the large enough for a light tech project and yeah.
So do you want to start on this property?
Yes. So this is, you'll notice on the map that we tried to distribute these, we tried to find them throughout town, not just to say, they're all going to go in this neighborhood. So I think that's a virtue of this list. This is behind the, way behind Common Ground, Monotony Grill, thank you. And it's an underutilized parking lot, and we have a lot of pavement, and it's often empty in Arlington, and it really could be housing people. Even if we were to keep parking at grade, you can build above this, as the board knows. So this is, starting east, we could just keep going. Do you want to show the one just north of it? Oh, good. This is East Arlington. This is walking, for a lot of us, it's walking distance to Alewife Station. It's right on the Mass Ave bus. This is very low slung development. It's one story. You could even imagine this being a really beautiful gateway development for the town. We have a lot of automotive use. I think everyone knows historically that we were a miracle mile for the auto sales industry. And we still have a lot of remnants of that, which is fine. We all need to have vehicles serviced from time to time, but this could be a very good site. And if I'm leaving anything out, colleagues, please speak up.
Or if there's any property in particular that you want to talk about and discuss why it's on there.
Would this be an appropriate time to talk about the approach in general as to the spots of these?
This
or?
is wide open.
Okay.
If you feel like you need a question, just speak right up, and I want this to be interactive. I don't want this to be a presentation. I think this is something we have to work together on.
So we looked for open spaces, basically.
Absolutely.
And spaces that were strategically located to be close to transit, to be close to where people who live there wouldn't necessarily need to be car dependent. Laura and I used to work together in the planning department. Sarah works in the planning department right now, and we have a lot of kind of long-term knowledge about some sites that just seem like they're very good opportunities. There are lots of sites listed here, and we knew there were sites in common ownership with adjacent parcels that would, in total, be of light tech or affordable housing development scale.
Absolutely. No, I think that you all spent a lot of time going through and finding, places that would be doable. Coming from a development background, it's one of the biggest issues is finding a space that's big enough and affordable to buy such that you can pencil the deal. My concern, though, is from a legal perspective. So spot zoning is generally illegal, right? So zoning particular parcels. It can be legal if it serves a public purpose. So this, would be one of those potentially. But usually what you see when it is legal is this spot for the fire station, this spot for the school.
I'm glad you're bringing this up.
One concern that I have with this is I actually think each of these is very well thought out. And where my head went is why don't we do a strip as opposed to spot
So,
zoning. Let me just
yeah.
finish my thought.
Yeah.
I know that I'm new here. I know there's been a lot of background, and so that's why I was asking about the background. But one thing I think we should consider as a board is the potential that this could get sidetracked by litigation. If, you know, say one of these businesses is okay with being designated this designation because it may actually increase their property value depending on what the property is. But one of their neighbors might actually take issue with the fact that they don't also get to sell their property if the adjoining business did. So I just wanted to hear a little more. By no means do I think that we need to do what Cambridge has done and do the entire town, all those things. But there are, a lot of these are in similar spaces. And I wonder if there's a way to do a little bit more strict zoning so that we don't open ourselves up to litigation, first of all. And second of all, so that we don't impose kind of what we think will work the best on either the property owners who own these spaces or the developers. Like, for example, there's different developers. Some people are really good with historic tax credits, right? So when I saw the Capitol Theater come up, I said, oh my goodness, I know some developers that really do historic really well. I really want this building not to be, you know, bought and torn down or made into something else because I live in East Arlington and it's such a core piece of our experience. And then I went to look and it wasn't in any district that could be redeveloped with, you know, if you put 2 more stories up there, you could have 50 units and you have a LIHTC project and you put LIHTC plus historic and then you have a really easy to pencil, well, nothing's easy to pencil up these days, but you have a deal that really could work and could really enhance the neighborhood as well. So that was where my head went. So maybe being new to this board, folks could talk to me a little bit about why we're spot zoning here as opposed
This
to.
is,
Yeah.
Can I say a few things? We might be saying the same thing.
Yeah,
When we talked earlier about some of the stuff here,
yeah,
one of our concerns was we didn't want this to usurp our commercial and our business districts in town, since we have so little of it when we have under 5%. And so we didn't want that to be replacing that. So taking the strip approach was something we brought up as a concern. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying that was one of the concerns. And we do want that kind of pressure, because right now housing is hot,
right.
and so we're still trying to have like a balanced town, and some places where you can have a walking town, you know, where you can go and get coffee, get a haircut, or do what you want, which is the charm of this town. So that's one of the things we're sort of concerned about, saying, okay, we're not going to take away all the businesses because right now what's hot is housing. You do bring up a great point about litigation and spot zoning, okay? That's not my area of expertise, so I'm going to just say...
I see too much litigation all day long, so my head goes there straight.
I welcome you to the board for that kind of insight. So that was just some of the history of it.
That
Am
makes
I
sense.
more or
Yeah,
less-
commercial space.
yes, I can review the spot zoning concern. Spot zoning is very well supported if there's a very deliberate planning process and a public interest served. It's from my career knowledge and working with a lot of town councils, it's, in my experience, highly unlikely that we would lose a case where someone were to say, to look at this, the hoped for outcome of this work and say that there's a spot zoning case to be had. It's not unusual to have an overlay district that's comprised of discontiguous parcels. So I'm glad you brought that up because it sure looks like little Swiss cheese, but I can assure you based on my 30 plus years of experience that with the kind of work that this board and this committee and this town has undertaken for this effort over many years, I think the public benefit that would come from the affordable housing, I don't think it's much of a concern.
Yeah, and just one thing to add, to consider for the board, it doesn't usually take losing the suit. It takes the several $100,000 of fighting the suit to just for the developer to walk away and for the town to decide that that's not a good use of our taxpayer money. So just something to consider. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You want to keep on going with some of the other sites?
Sure. So this is Trinity Baptist Church on Mass Ave, and it has a very large lawn on the left side that could realistically have some attractive housing and still leave a nice setting and site for the house of worship, for the church. And we all know this is the Fox Branch Library, and a lot of municipalities across the country are realizing that they can create a very dynamic asset for the communities by having housing, redeveloping their library sites to have housing combined with the library. And I know there's some exploration undergoing here, and so this site makes sense to include, we believe.
Carol, if I can just interject.
Please.
We did a feasibility study on housing above a future Fox library, and I can make that study available to the board if you'd like to take a look at it, if you haven't seen it already. It's pretty thorough, and it does a really good job describing what it would take to install that type of housing with a new Fox library. So we're doing some work towards that now.
I was on the board when that study went up, and one of the conclusions was that there wasn't enough land. It did not qualify for a good life-tech project like that. It needed to be a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
That was the crux of it. That site, location-wise, was great, but it just wasn't big enough.
Right.
It could not generate enough between what the library needed and what the housing above it just didn't work. And,
Along those lines, and speaking with Erica at HCA, who they've looked at this site too, the abutting properties there are actually, she had suggested that they were potentially, they aren't overly expensive. Like they could be put together. And I mean, as an East Arlington resident with 4 kids under the age of 9, that better not go anywhere. The Fox Library, we need that. So I wonder actually if that would be worth including the adjoining businesses. And along those lines, I mean, I'm sure as a board we could say if there's commercial space, you have to maintain it as commercial space, and not every developer could do that, but it would only allow developers that chose to maintain that as commercial space. So that could be an option too, if you.
To add the adjacent businesses on Mass Ave?
Yeah, for that spot in particular, because that would, that study, I did read that as well, and it looks like it's only about 24 units, and you really have to go home ownership there, which I think maybe isn't our goal.
It didn't work out well.
Yeah, but with the adjoining properties, if those did want to sell, then maybe it could be doable. And
Great idea.
we really do need that library
They
there.
actually got as far as talking to the owner behind it, because there's a carriage house back there that's sort of
Right.
dog-leg off the property and the house there.
It just sold though.
I know.
It did.
Yeah.
I had people in mind to do the
Okay,
library
that's good
plus
feedback.
Yeah.
Listed.
The Mass Housing's coming out with some other
700 square feet.
funding soon. It's not just Gateway City, so we'll hit that corner. Maybe home ownership, affordable.
Let's keep on going, or...
Yeah. This is the Arlington Convenience Site. It's
That's true.
it's hard to tell from this photograph, but it's a corner lot, so it has a little more space than it appears here. And it's of course right on Mass Ave, so right on the bus line and close to so many services. While we're here in the well, I guess why don't we go to the 2 further down Mass Ave and then go to the 4 and then go back to Broadway to finish the east. So this is a Walgreens site. This is, of course, I use Walgreens, and this is a huge site, and we don't want Walgreens to necessarily go away, and it's a really good commercial site, but it's also I think it's the only site where you could, from Mass Ave, create a site design where you could have public views of Spy Pond. Even right at Spy Pond, there are places where we don't have public views of Spy Pond. So that's a great opportunity for redevelopment, for some really good redevelopment. And it's such a large site, it could be potentially combined with other uses. So that's something to think about. It was, before my time, it was an A&P grocery store, but it's kind of hard to believe what's right behind that. So We had David Gamble do a design for a sketch of it years ago, 12 years ago maybe, where the development could be on either side of the site, and you could have some. Anyway, I'm getting into the weeds a little bit. We don't need to. I think you get the picture. And this is right next to it. So if we're trying to assemble sites and, you know, you want to have the zoning, as you just commented yourselves, on adjacent properties if possible. So these are a couple interesting buildings. This is a office condominium building. The owners have decided it's vacant. There may be one remaining business. If they're gone? Okay. And so it's got the architectural do not resuscitate sign on it, as far as I recall. I think it's still up. And the property next to it is also, it's not also anything. It's just potentially, thank you, it's a VFW, and potentially combined could be a great location for a good affordable housing development. So going back down Broadway, there are some good opportunities. Right there, yeah. This is interesting. This is a very large chunk of asphalt behind the Leahy Clinic building. It has other uses as a gym
It's a
there.
massive parking lot.
Pardon?
It is a massive parking lot.
Yeah, and it's a 4-minute walk to a grocery store. There's a bus stop right out front. So it really seems like we should, and I've talked to some developers who have, multifamily developers who have said that they thought of that site too as one that could be good for multifamily and affordable in particular.
Could I also just make a statement? That, I believe, is one of the only sites, really, truly sites in Arlington for industry or some sort of commercial, because it's that wide open, it's that close to the T where you're not hamstrung by not having enough parking. I'm just saying that's going to happen. We have to balance that too together. But I don't think that, I just don't disagree with it. It's a great site. It's also a great site for other things too.
Has the board and the committee considered adding any bonuses to include commercial?
So
We are, go ahead.
I was going to say it is in the draft bylaw changes, but I think the one challenge with commercial is you need a different source of funding.
Right.
Or if you're going to do LIHTC funds, it's got to be some sort of a community service organization. So HCA was able to pull this off with having Arlington Eats, but you know we may not always have the luxury of having a nonprofit community service organization ready to fill a space.
Actually, you don't need another source of funding. You just have to back it out of basis. So you just build the empty shell, and then you can fill it with whatever. And if there's a project that...
It's hard to finance that commercial, as you know.
Yeah.
You can't cross-subsidize it with
Right.
the housing and
Yeah.
the commercial market is so tight right now that
Yeah.
unless you're doing commercial fit out for your tenant,
Right.
you have a hard time getting a decent rent.
Although I'd be interested to see, it depends sort of what neighborhood it is, right? If it's a walkable place like this, where it might be a little different than some of the other commercial spaces that are hard to fill in some of the developments that we see. So I would never want to see it as a requirement, but do we have a study of what Arlington's commercial, like what is optimal for commercial in Arlington, what size, what?
We have sort of one that's sort of done. We're still working on that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't we just table that till
Yeah.
that's coming up next later on tonight when we talk about business district here.
Yeah, but just if people have concerns that commercial, a spot shouldn't be included in this because of commercial, I think we should consider.
I like
as
your
a compromise.
fresh approach. I've been told all along that it doesn't work. They don't play well next to each other. And I said, okay.
Yeah.
but if we can get it to work, it'd be great.
I think what I'm hearing though is allow for the opportunity for it to work, as opposed to create a requirement for it to work. And that I think I would be very much in favor of.
Are you talking about mixed use, or are you talking about two different uses on the site, or what are you thinking?
I think any of the above. I'm not close enough to the overlay as proposed to know for sure, but I think every site's going to be a little bit different. A site like this might be appropriate for multiple uses on a site. The library, or for in multiple physical spaces. The library site, on the other hand, even if it were something different than the library, it would, I imagine, need to be mixed use. There's just not enough space for anything but one building with a mix of uses. But I don't know. I generally think the more flexibility and creativity that is provided to developers, the better. Let's let them tell us what works. They want to do cool things.
To allow it, but
generally
not
speaking.
require it.
That's right.
Yeah,
Right.
that sounds good. And note that if you look at the list of parcels here, we're not proposing that the zoning be necessarily in the street frontage, but just in the back where there's the less utilized part.
Carol, you also said something a little earlier, just backing way up, about adjacent parcels, and I wonder if there's a way of treating adjacent parcels in the overlay, right? So we can do some thinking about, we think this is an appropriate adjacent parcel, should we put it in? But in the vein of developers are going to come up with things and be creative, I wonder if there's space for saying, if a developer wants to assemble parcels and the main parcel, or even just one of them, but is in the overlay district, and the ultimate the final development meets the requirements of the district, the overlay district zoning will rule, even if an abutting parcel.
Have you been eavesdropping on our committee meetings? No, they're open to the public. So no, that's great to hear, because we've been thinking about that from the beginning and trying to work on that language. So that's great to hear. Thank you. I appreciate that.
When we get, I'll save it till when we get to the bylaw text, but I do have some specific feedback on that portion of it, of your draft.
Great. Okay.
For example, we might think, wow, that gas station looks amazing, and then they might drill down and find that that's not developable, right? Because there's spillage or there's something, and maybe the parcel next to it is better. Who knows? Yeah.
That's right. Okay, so this is the Dunkin' Donuts, and there's is this the one where it's right next to this? Has been like this as long as I've lived here, and I've lived here for so long, it's like ancient times. And this would be, again, there's schools, services. It's so close to the playground, and so this is a really good potential site, notwithstanding the potential 21E issues that the developer would have to deal with. So the Dunkin' is right next to the Broadway?
There's
One on-
Anthony's
okay.
next door.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dunkin' and then the Cambridge State.
I'm curious, when you guys looked at that site, was the site big enough to support your, 30-odd units of housing there to make it?
111 Broadway. This one?
Yes, that one there.
It's almost 11,000 square feet.
I-
Yeah, for context, 10 Sunnyside, which is being developed into 47, is about 14,000. So, yeah, I think you could put a LIHTC project there.
Okay, I'm just wondering,
Adjacent to the Housing Corporation of Arlington's project with the food bank.
Yep.
Plant right next door, so it could be combined in some way.
It takes care of the access to the property, which is a challenge on 11 Broadway.
yes, because I just remember the owner of that coming to us saying, we need access from the playground. And we said, no. So I'm just wondering, was this site good enough? But, okay, sorry,
Good.
keep on going.
Good observation. And this is very close by. This is Eli's, and again, 21E, but we'll let the developers figure that out. And right next to it is these apartment units that could potentially create, with an additional story or two, there's a lot of open area. This could be redesigned and redeveloped possibly. We would, I think any developer here would have to be very careful not to displace people. That's a very important part of our criteria. But look at the acreage. It's 5.29 acres. So we didn't want to overlook the potential to include this.
I think that is a great site. And I would encourage even going further and looking at the traffic islands and the streets in that area. There's such a wasted space. You go there, you don't know which way to go, left, right. And if you're trying to merge with traffic, you're way out. You'll really take a long time to merge out there. And this is just a bunch of boxes that are sort of scattered along this parcel here. And I think realigning these boxes is a great spot. And not losing, people who live here. I think relocate them and do it in phases is definitely a great
phase
spot.
it.
So I looked at this site and I thought this is a great site. And it's big enough.
Just to be clear, any developer that gets federal funding is not allowed to displace people, and they put up to $300,000 in their budget to find appropriate places, and then people have a right of return. So if you're looking at a federally funded project, that shouldn't be, I mean, obviously it's disruptive to people when they have to temporarily relocate, for sure, but
I wasn't aware of the ownership of this, so I'm glad.
it actually doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who owned it before the federally
Oh,
funded.
because you're using the LIHTC, yes.
Yeah, well,
Great.
LIHTC, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
you even have to, Walgreens would be, you'd have to relocate Walgreens.
Yeah.
Just like
Yep.
a person. So, yep.
Thank you. That's also good for us to bear in mind.
You might just consider that little triangle between Warren and Broadway as a candidate if that segment of road were ever to be removed, at least as a vehicle throughway. It could be turned into still a walking corridor, but you could somehow include that little triangle.
We will. I will ask Director Ricker during new business to give us an update on the town's plans for the intersection of Warren and Broadway.
The town's been planning on that for as long as I've been here. They've been talking about it. That's all that's happened.
green space. Yeah.
Can I ask, Carol, you came to the board in the early spring with a list of sites. Is this the same list of sites, or has it changed? I'm just...
If anything, we've added a few.
We added the houses of worship. We've added more of the house of worship parcels. They haven't been added to the map yet, but they're on the parcel list. So if you were not looking at this screen necessarily.
Yeah, okay.
And
is-
Housing authority properties, HCA properties, but I think you saw those.
I mean, the reason I ask is that I think someone listening could think, oh my gosh, they're going to redevelop every church and every business. And, I think it would be a miracle if 1 out of 50 of these were ever redeveloped. So in my mind, we're creating just the opportunity for a handful of projects, and the more reasonable parcels we can include, the better. The property owners still have their full choice of not redeveloping, and most of them will not redevelop. But I think adding more is perfectly fine with me.
So when the houses of worship were added, was it the congregations themselves, or was it more along the lines of YIGB eligible properties, right? So schools or things owned by congregations that might not be a church or synagogue or whatever itself.
It was all parcels that are owned by a house of worship and that have a use code that is consistent with being either rectory, church. In some cases, I believe they have, like if the church owned it and it's operated as a school, like that's all included. So these are, the list up here right now in green is all of the church-owned parcels, church, house of worship. Free.
Your point, Vince, will come back to because that's a very important one. That this is not a redevelopment plan. This is just creating zoning rights, another layer of zoning rights on top of the existing.
So to the center.
Sure. I'll try to speed it up, but you take your time. I'll just try to.
Well, this is good. I think
Okay.
this is good interaction.
So on Medford Street, the Archdiocese has the two schools, Arlington Catholic High School and St. Agnes Church and Parish Center. So there's a lot of real estate here. So we're including all of this. I doubt this will ever convert, but we know that the Archdiocese does develop some of its property from time to time, so we wouldn't want to deny them the opportunity to do that if they ever decided to do that. And so the Russell Common lot, that's very important, and we're not going to talk too much about that tonight, but it seems like an obvious opportunity for, if the town were to want to engage in a design process, we don't want to deny them the opportunity to include in that design process and redevelopment concept, possibly having a corner of it having affordable, 100% affordable. The location is terrific. This is the Verizon building at the corner of Maple and Pleasant, and it has a parking lot in the back and a yard in the front where you just go by it, we don't even notice it, but that's a really good opportunity right there.
Is that building empty?
No.
Yeah. It's Verizon.
I know, but back in the day when they had operators and they, push buttons
Right.
and connect wires, they needed all that space.
There's definitely, they use the parking. They go in and out of parking. I don't know.
Because I'm not sure what's in the building now. I mean, you're not going to have switchgear or any of that kind of stuff in that. You want a newer building that's.
Verizon's putting some new technology into some of their real estate, but I don't know if that's the case in this building.
So all of the Housing Authority, Arlington Housing Authority properties and the Housing Corporation of Arlington Park properties were all included. So that was at the request of their executive directors. So we don't have to necessarily spend, I don't think, a lot of time going over them, but 58 Medford Street is 58 Medford Street is included only because I've been speaking. This is the owner of the project at 80 Broadway, which is the 5-story development. So the owner of the property also owns this, and he asked. He's interested in being considered for any redevelopment work that could be done, especially as it's adjacent to the housing authority. If there were any opportunities there.
You guys can also be including the funeral parlor next door.
if the board wishes for us
Well,
to add
just,
it.
I'm just looking at size of properties. That was like a house with like kind of a large backyard, but that's about it. But if you include that parcel and the funeral parlor, and then there's an office building sort of jet in there somewhere, that now becomes a decent sized parcel.
Good point. Noted. Thank you.
I mean, it's just an overlay. We're not saying it's going to be that. I mean, we just want to look at getting the structure so we can do it. I mean, I just want to see,
So 5 and 1.
1 and 5 Chestnut.
So these are all housing authority properties, so I'm just going to kind of scoot over them.
And here we have another large parking lot. This is one of my favorite places in Arlington, but we could add to the owner's allowed uses, affordable housing. You could even probably do a couple different things redeveloping here because it's a lot of land.
Another of our former car lots.
Right? Yeah.
One of the last places to get really good fish.
And this is across the street at the corner of Mill?
Mill.
Thank you. Mill and Summer. Now, across the street from Arlington High School is Bankers Row. There's 3 banks right next to each other, and this could be a great opportunity if even a couple of them were assembled. This could be a really great opportunity for an affordable housing development. So on either side of Mass Ave here are properties owned by, held in common ownership on both sides. You can take your pick. I mean, as an owner of which side of the street you want to activate for affordable housing to redevelop. There's across the street is the parking lot that this is so many parcels. It looks like one lot, but it's many parcels all in same ownership, so they wouldn't have to assemble any of that. It's all owned by one if they opted to use that. And down behind on Prentice Street is a function hall. And is that the KFC? Is that the Knights of Columbus?
No.
No.
It used to be Sons of Italy.
Sons of Italy, thank you, excuse me. So again, it's not a redevelopment plan. This is just creating new, this would create additional zoning opportunities besides the ones they already have.
Can I ask, and I know this is probably a question out of order, but going back to Michelle's thought about strips, are any of these parcels also in the MBTA community zones?
Most of them are not.
Most of them are not. And I just wonder if, I know that there is a kind of logic that leads towards the larger sites for the light tech projects, but it's not impossible that someone might see some opportunity in a smaller site or maybe a couple of smaller sites that are side by side. And I wonder if looking at some of the zones that are in the Mass Ave Broadway multifamily district might also be included. So you essentially have a parcel with 2 overlay zones, and that might also be a way to, even if spot zoning is not a concern per se, to create some more contiguous districts that connect a couple of these parcels that would otherwise be discontinuous.
So consider including some of the MBTA, the parcels that are in the 2 MBTA districts.
Yeah, and one reason to do that is that the board has been trying to exercise some degree of caution about redeveloping our commercial and industrial parcels. All of the MBTA communities parcels, as far as I know, are zoned for residential. We didn't rezone commercial and industrial parcels. So what you have are, maybe smaller lots, but they're lots that are currently used for residential, and redeveloping them as residential would essentially not change that.
We are trying to keep true to the criterion of avoiding lots that have existing residential. And I can go into detail on the principles behind that. We also met with the assessor, our late assessor, in March to get information on the value of apartments, even affordable apartments, versus commercial new construction in terms of new growth in the tax base. And we were pleasantly surprised that even with discounting for affordable apartments, they still, on a per square foot basis, give us more bang for our buck in the tax levy in terms of new growth, even while they're under construction, than new commercial would give us. So it's, I think the MBTA district, and notwithstanding the fact that we will take a look at the MBTA parcels to see if some of them make sense to include, but for those two reasons, I think we're trying not to go where there's already possibly lower market rate rentals that are occupiable and that are probably housing people who couldn't afford new construction in a conventional apartment. So we want to try to avoid those if we can with this particular overlay district. But I take your point, and we will look for any of those parcels that we might want to add.
Appreciate it.
Happy to add as many parcels as you want.
Thanks, but no, I do appreciate that explanation and that logic, and I think it's nice to see that there's that thought that's gone into it, so thank you.
Thank you. And so, this is a stretch on Mass Ave where there's, again, motor vehicle, and the MIRAC just changed hands recently. There's a lot of land here. And I think that this is just so opportune, this whole area. So unless anyone has questions about Greater Boston Motorsports and the former MIRAC Chevrolet. Is it still MIRAC Chevrolet? No.
McGovern.
McGovern. Thank you. Okay.
Carol, can I just interrupt for once? I'm going to try to control this meeting such that we're going to move to the next agenda at 9. So I want to give you opportunity to do some back end of talking about some of the zoning stuff too.
Sure.
I just want to go 100% on all these little sites.
Yeah,
So
if you want, we could stop here and you get a flavor for what we're looking at and what we're picking. And we'd be happy to address questions through the planning director, if that's, to be respectful of open meeting law. If you look at the rest of the sites and have questions, or if you think we overlooked anything really important, of course we could take that feedback through the planning director.
What does the rest of the board think? I'm open.
I think we've gotten a good sample.
No, and I think I agree with I think your selection criteria has been sound. You're looking for parcels that, are larger, that, tend not to have a significant residential use, and that are, tend to be with tend to have higher land value ratios and be good candidates for development. So, or for redevelopment. That all makes sense to me. I think it's a good selection of sites.
Thank you.
I would just echo what my board members on each side here have mentioned. I'm so glad you brought up the tax base. Again, noting my 4 children, it is a concern, sort of what the cuts that are happening in the school district, and so anywhere we can add tax base is a win in my world. And so I guess I would just echo what these folks had said: is any way we can give flexibility. For example, I love Shayna's idea that if there's one of the parcels in this district, it could sort of shine onto the others and bring them in. Maybe that would catch some MBTA parcels, because it is going to be hard to develop anything in Arlington, period. It just is going to be difficult, so we're not going to see that much. But if we could, get 2 developments that get us to our 40B threshold and that get us a little bit more tax base in the next 10 years, I think that would be great. So I love these ideas of how can we add flexibility to sort of make it actually happen, for a couple
Yeah.
developments.
So so I think this is a great list. I think I think you've done incredible work. I am thinking about what Michelle raised with the spot zoning and not being an attorney, wondering about how to think about that. And I don't know, maybe you can speak to or Michelle can speak to whether structuring or building into the overlay criteria as opposed to sites, so that the overlay is structured around very specific criteria, and you've used very specific criteria to identify sites in the first place, so that that might be a way to protect against concerns of spot zoning. Now, I don't know if criteria could be structured such that they are narrow enough to capture the sites, the desired sites, but not a whole lot more. That was
I
just a
see what
thought.
you mean.
Thank you. Why don't we move on to the, I think we're in agreement here. Why don't we move on to some of the zoning
Okay.
suggestions and we'll talk about that a little bit. I mean, if we need to, well, I think if we need to schedule another meeting, we'll talk about it. Let's follow up. I don't want to get too much in,
So may I follow up with one remark just regarding, I think I'm inclined to trust Ms. Kowalski's, career as a planner in terms of that, this is a viable or a viable parcel list for an overlay district. The one thing I think, one advantage I see in having a parcel list is that you actually have a specific list of sites rather than giving someone a map of 12,000 parcels, or which that's roughly what we have, and then trying to sort out which ones are candidates or not. So to me, the concrete list is actually a beneficial thing.
Oh, I think one way or another we need the concrete list, and
Oh,
so
okay.
if it were standards, if it were qualitative standards, I think we'd need to release along with it. These are the parcels that we believe, these are the parcels that fit these standards, we believe, and someone could always, I think, come back and challenge and say, no, actually, I fit too, let me in. But it would also allow for evolution over time.
Right. We haven't talked about that at all, but someone could apply to ask to be added to the list, as they have done with the MBTA Communities Overlay. And I believe we're added
one.
by town meeting.
Yes.
One.
Two.
Two. I was gonna say two asked.
Oh, okay.
It's been one a year.
Okay.
One a year.
Yeah.
It's a slow process. Zoning.
It just occurs to me that one thing we might do, rather than trying to find some kind of funky way to write the zoning in a way that makes it also apply to adjacent parcels, which seems a bit, either you include it in the zone or you don't, but you could commit as a town to having a standing warrant article that the town would do outreach for anyone who wants to come and submit their parcel to be potentially included in the overlay district. And you might only open it to people who are immediately adjacent to the overlay district, so you don't just add this patchwork all over the place. But that could be something that the town could do to support this sort of incremental addition of parcels from time to time.
And that could allay a litigation concern, because people are more likely to, if they really want to develop, they don't want to get in a fight with you. They'd rather bring forward an option that could allow them to, so that could help. Yeah.
It seems unlikely that anyone who wanted to develop affordable housing would not bring it to the planning department fairly early on, because they'd be looking for money. So we would know about it and could add it. Yeah, from the Affordable Housing Trust or CDBG or, right, not from planners' pockets.
All right, why don't we move on
Okay.
to the next?
So we have the draft bylaw. It is very similar to one you've seen in the past. Mixed use was something we sort of struggled with because the feedback we got from developers was that it's very hard to use tax credits for mixed use property, but it is also conceivable that that might not be the only source of funding used. So we came up with, as a sort of a compromise, that mixed use would be allowed and at a developer's choice, but would not be required, even along the commercial corridors. But also to note, with the exception of the Fox Library, none of the properties are in one of the 3 business districts. They're all between the business districts.
Yes, thank you for that.
Yes.
And a quick question, it says mixed use bonus, but I'm just having trouble finding what the bonus is. Is it just that the setback is reduced?
Yes, the front yard setback. Right, Carol? There's no other bonus.
We're still editing that section, and that's kind of what we're hoping would be happening here, like trying to. And really trying to understand a way that we can give the mixed use bonus as an option for those that want it, and how like I initially was working on how to get it into the MBTA overlay. Like if we just put a 100% affordable, but then we kind of got stuck. And there's no other incentives that we really could have offered short of going up one more floor. And we're still set on just those parcels that can really go up to 6 stories already. So we can keep the same type of language for an affordable housing overlay to have a mixed use bonus where you're still trying to meet the 60% of the ground floor, It does get more, it's up to the board, really. It's a little bit strict for an affordable housing developer to meet, and I only know this from HCA and their work with the Emma's Court project. They're still having a lot of difficulties trying to justify the space and the design based on the strict requirement of that commercial mixed-use space.
With the MBTA communities, we had a 4-story limit, but you could go up to 6 if you had affordable housing or mixed use.
Mm-hmm.
And we chose to just do 6.
Yeah.
Because we really want to make it as feasible as possible, and therefore and we discussed, did we want to do a bonus beyond that, and felt like 6 was something that the town has voted on, it's acceptable, and we didn't want to do anything that would jeopardize the proposal. So it's not as strong an incentive as with the mixed use, with the MBTA communities.
I think, from my experience as a developer back in the day, 6 is actually a number that is hard to go. You either go 6 or you go 12. Going in between doesn't make any financial sense whatsoever, because with 6 stories you can go with stick frame over a podium. Okay, once you go over 6 stories, now you're in a high rise. You're in a whole different category.
Going over 4 is actually, I think going over 4 is pretty difficult because you get into Davis-Bacon wages if it's federally funded, right?
Based on stories? Isn't it units?
I don't know about that.
It changes the wage rate.
The wage rate, that's what it is. It goes into a commercial wage rate as opposed to the residential. But anyway, the developers can.
But then, but then, you start going high rise, and now you want to make high rise work. You're looking at 11 or 12 stories. You're talking about steel, and you're talking, a whole bunch of other concrete slabs, the whole works, and that's just different.
Right.
And that's just economics.
Uh-huh.
And then also, I don't think the town wants a bunch of 12-story buildings around. Okay, so I think that's just a non-starter there.
Right.
Is it above 7 floors that you have to do steel frame, or is it above 6?
Above 6.
It's really based on something really simple. It's based on the fire truck's hook and ladder, and if that ladder can't reach up a certain height, then it's classified as a high-rise building. And then you go with a different kind of structure. But the law says that you can go with 5 stories of wood framing on top of a podium, which gives you 6 floors. That's what, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's the new norm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at Paris, and you look at all those buildings that are built at a certain height, and they just because that's the height they can build at. I think that is sort of what we're sort of getting into, you know, and is a norm for the new parts of buildings. I guess around the turn of the century, it used to be those 3-story
The triple deckers.
triple deckers, okay, and that was the norm. But because of the cost of land and especially everything else now, it's gone up a little bit. So it's just a standard. It's sort of.
So the mixed use bonus is a significant bonus because the 10 feet is, I presume, on every story of the building that you can get it. So that really could change your project quite significantly if you can build to the sidewalk versus not. And I'm a little worried that if we just leave it, as I understand it, it's left up to the board's discretion how much mixed use, how much space, and I just want to, as much as possible, avoid having a bylaw where the developer wouldn't know what they would need to do. And so I know it's tricky to say 60% or 30%, but you might want to consider just putting a target so that it reduces our discretion and makes it clearer.
Their guesswork.
Exactly. Now we can fight for years about the definition of 30%, but at least having a number gives them some guidance.
I mean, we've tried, in most cases, we've followed the MBTA communities zoning with the setbacks. Would it make sense to just follow the wording that's in MBTA communities?
Maybe we can do even better. I think that's what Vince is saying.
Well, when you finish, then I have a few things.
I don't think it needs to be 60% if that's what you mean. I'm open to a different percentage.
So just a couple of, on the topic of bonuses, I would encourage you to consider the word incentive rather than bonus. With MBTA communities, yes, we use the term bonus, and I think there were members of the public who interpreted bonus as something that should be difficult to achieve, where the intent was to incentivize certain types of development. So maybe incentive would be a better word there. I'm glad to hear you're still working on that section because I was sort of puzzled why the table had a 0-foot front yard setback in the corridor district, and then offered a 0-foot setback for the mixed use incentive. Regarding, since we talked about parcel boundaries, I was a little surprised by 592C, where it says that basically if the overlay, if a development consists of, part of it's in the overlay and part of it's not, well, then you can't do it. Which I think that's what it would essentially work. I think to me it would really work against the idea of parcel aggregation. So,
It should be the opposite.
yeah, so maybe one parcel adjacent to the district could be included, and the MBTA communities the MBTA communities overlay does have language to that effect. Finally, as far as site plan review goes, I commend you for referring to board regulations rather than EDR criteria. That's a whole other can of worms, and I'll just let that go for now. But in terms of what the standards for site plan review are, this is still a moving target, but both the House and Senate have developed standards for site plan review, and it's very likely that by the end of the year, some part of that, in some way, shape, or form, will be part of Chapter 40A, and we won't have to worry about the specifics because Massachusetts will have a uniform standard for site plan review, and life will be, well, more wonderful than it is now. Thank you.
Can I inject something? With this setback, okay, one of the things we considered was fairly highly debated, actually, with when we did the MBTA, is 0 setback and 10-foot, 15-foot setback, whatever setback there is. The setbacks and 0 setbacks has to do with what the function of the first floor is. I think that's something you have to really look into, because when you do mixed use, having a 0 setback is great because it activates the street, it enlivens the street. But when you're doing housing, you don't want 0 line setback, because you want to be walking by looking in someone's house, or vice versa, or someone just living in the first floor and seeing everybody walk by. So having a setback is nice, and I don't want to just say, let's cram everything in there. So I think if the first floor, we should look into that. If the first floor is housing, then we should talk about something, having some sort of communal space there. One of the things I liked back before was the front porches. I mean, that all went away, with inventing of air conditioning and so forth like that. No one sat outside to cool down anymore, and that you lost that communal, seeing what's up, who's walking down the street and all that kind of stuff. But if we do something like a communal space that can have something like that, that might be okay. So I don't know. I'm just not trying to say, let's look into it. I'm not saying yes or no, one or the other. I'm just saying let's be cognizant of what. Just saying 0 setback is a lot for building, but that's not what you want. You want to create a lively space, and so.
So if there was a maximum, like a minimum, a maximum setback.
I don't think it's that. I think we should talk about, like, depending on what function that happens.
But uses do change, right? You could start off with just the right use and it fails for some reason, and then what?
Yes, I know.
It has
but,
to be that.
But let's say we just approved this gas station up in what part of town that is. It was formerly a gas station and a car dealership. Now it sells marijuana. I mean, uses change. You just have to change it as things adapt. But when we first start off, let's start thinking about, if we say 0 line setback, let's go in there with eyes open, saying, what kind of space are you creating there? Maybe you push it up, and maybe it's half a story up, so I see people top of people's heads. I don't know. Just want to bring it up. That's all.
And so 0 literally means to the sidewalk, so no street trees.
Back to sidewalk.
The
Yeah.
sidewalk.
Yeah.
That's
It's pretty that's
pretty harsh.
I mean, I guess maybe there's an in between where doesn't have to be a huge setback, but enough to at least have plantings or something.
A plaza for a transitional place that here's the public sidewalk, here's this transitional area that transitions into the residential. I think it's good food for thought, so we can.
And then it does make the commercial a real bonus, if you get 5 more feet or something. And developers who really are committed to doing commercial are hopefully going to do it in a way that makes it work and it won't just be empty, but you never know, of course.
I mean, we were going to ask if there were any other things in the zoning, creative things in the dimensional, such as if you were by a residential area, should there be a different setback than if you were by a commercial area? Was one thing we talked about a little bit.
Speaking to the mic.
I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, we talked about whether the setback requirement should be different if it abuts a residential zone than a commercial zone. But abuts a residential zone. Yeah.
I saw.
that was
So,
one thing that
I think what Steve brought up earlier, and Vince too, is the possibility of, say you have conjoining spaces. Right now you have this affordable housing overlay or whatever it may be in this one parcel, but the parcel directly next to it is zoned R1 or R2, whatever. There's a possibility like combining those two zones and upzoning that extra parcel. And then with the MBTA, if the mixed-use building is abutting a residential district, there was a setback, which had a setback, so you address that part, and I think you should look into that.
keep that.
If it's next to a residential, you might want to step it down, and has setbacks where it's not 6 stories or maybe 4 stories, 3 stories or whatever, and so there's no shadow overlays and that kind of stuff,
Right. Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, so my personal opinion is that we have a very complex zoning code here, and here in Arlington, and I would encourage you to streamline and be parsimonious to the greatest extent possible, while still achieving all of the specific goals that you're trying to achieve. But I think the specific question you raised about different setbacks adjacent to residential districts, my initial thought is, let's not complicate matters more than we need to.
Okay.
Can I make a very specific suggestion? In the spring, I believe it was HCA proposed a warrant article, which was Article 56, which would have given the board the option to reduce the bicycle parking requirements for projects that were 100% affordable. And I think at the time our comment was, maybe, but this would make a lot more sense as part of the Affordable Housing Overlay District, and here we are. So what if you were to add a line saying that the board may reduce by, I think they had suggested 2/3 the number of bicycle parking spaces required?
That actually, the other thing we talked about was the parking in general, the car parking in particular, and we decided not to change the parking requirement because our zoning bylaw has so much flexibility already to reduce parking with transportation demand management, and we wanted to encourage transportation demand management in this type of development. But we could add a reduction in the bicycle parking as well. I feel like we need bicycle parking, but
I agree, but I think the kind of developers that we're looking at know their tenants, and they know probably roughly how much bicycle parking they would need, and we don't want to force them to build bicycle parking that will go unused. I think that was the
Right.
idea.
Right. So maybe we could add that would be something that the board could review with the transportation demand management plan as part of the transportation demand management.
I don't know if we need to tie it to a transportation management plan per se. Just sort of the board would have the discretion to reduce the bicycle parking spaces.
Upon request, because as Vince points out, or actually as you point out, Laura, there is quite a bit of flexibility with parking, but there is no flexibility with bicycle parking at all.
And if you choose, and I think, I hear what you're saying about there being enough flexibility already with parking spaces that you wouldn't need to change the parking ratio. And if you go with that route, one thing to just consider would be, what if we were to add to the list of transportation demand management items, things you need to do. It's just one of them would be a development that's 100% affordable, or use your definition, so that it makes it a little easier for them to obtain that reduction.
So put it in the bicycle parking.
It's in the transportation demand management
Okay.
list.
Oh, yeah.
Vince, can I ask you, what are your thoughts about maybe also including location of a bicycle parking, saying that maybe only half of the bicycle parking requires to be on the ground floor, and others can be put in a basement or elsewhere. Right now, as you're aware, there's just so much stuff you put on the ground floor right now, and you know.
Well, there's not a requirement that the bike parking be on the ground floor. The requirement is that you be able to wheel the bike to where the bike parking is.
Okay.
We have seen people put, we have approved projects where the bike parking has been in the basement, and you know, the person would take their bicycle into an elevator and go down and come up when the time came. So I think we do have that flexibility already.
All right, I'm just seeing a lot of bicycle parking on the ground floor.
No, fair.
And,
That's fair.
And there's a fight for ground floor space right now, and
Yep.
I want to be well aware of that.
Mhm.
It's not a hard and fast requirement. That, maybe a sentence saying, hey, you know.
Not to belabor it, but
Just to be sure I understand, I correct me if I'm wrong about your point, that we don't have to put bicycle parking only on the first floor, that it could go on other floors provided there's elevator service. Is that
Provide this access,
access?
you know, or something, you know, like a ramp or somewhere they can, like Steve said, you will wheel it.
Yeah.
So just a mention like that might be enough, just to not be saying, oh, well, you know, we got to put the trash room here, we're going to put the fire command center here, we're going to put the bicycle here, you know, then you just run out of space. You know, so. One of the things, sorry, you guys are all talking about this large size affordable housing, okay? And I brought this up a while back, early on, and I said, look, we can't fit these large parcels, large projects in these big parcels everywhere. And can we think about something that's a little smaller, you know, and a little more intimate or something like that, where, you know, now they got new rules now where you only need one egress stair. So if we do like a 4-story building with one egress stair, and I don't know, I'm just wondering, does it still pencil out financially? That's all. I don't know enough about this, so you know what I'm saying?
I've been dying to share with you that there's this thing called the Spokane 6. I don't know if any of you have heard about it. It's fascinating. I'm going to send it to everyone, but it's what you're getting at. And so I respect that you said you want to just stop at 9, but I've got what you're saying, and I'll let you finish your point, but I'll send everyone.
I'm done.
Oh, it's so interesting. It's kind of the return of the, it's a double loaded, 3 units, ownership. Every unit has a porch, and there's windows on all sides. Architect in Washington State did this and presented it at a conference this spring, and I thought it was really brilliant. And you're going to look at it and say, oh, that looks just like Arlington.
I was going to say, it sounds a lot like the apartment one of the apartments I lived in Somerville.
Interesting. I'll send it to everyone. I think you'll be interested. And your point is.
Can you send it to Claire and let her do sending it? And
I
then
will distribute.
I like to also make that public knowledge too, so it be a part of the meetings. Yeah, for the record, so that the town can also see that too. I think that's a great idea.
I had a question about solar. So I think I understand that there is a solar requirement, the 6.4, 50%, but it's just not going under environmental review, design review. Is that the idea? Is that so? There is going to be a solar requirement under the as currently drafted.
Yes. So
Okay.
So the town has, the solar bylaw would still apply. Everything has to be designed fossil fuel free. We're part of the demonstration program and everything. And so we had language in there that's stricken through right now that was just a little bit too specific, I think. But it was about offering waivers, but we already have a process in place if a developer wanted to, if they couldn't provide the amount of required solar area on the roof, they can, or if they can't provide it at all, I mean, they can provide a waiver. So I see. In an effort to simplify the bylaw as much as possible, I just took it out. I'm not really 100% clear why we had it in there.
I may remember.
Okay, please.
And I'll look to Ms. Elliott to correct my terminology. But I believe the state comes up with is it a qualified allocation plan? But basically the state or the funding sources have requirements for energy efficiency and solar, and we don't want to. I think we want to try to avoid creating conflict scenarios there.
Yeah, I would just similarly, similar to your flexibility question with the bike parking, to the extent we can reduce the number of things being required, it's kind of like the abundance problem, right? If you want to do all the things and nothing gets done, but if we really want to focus on something, we have to sort of strip out some things that are also really good. So I would just say, to the extent we can be as flexible as possible with the bike parking and with the solar requirement, especially if we're asking this to be 100% affordable, then flexibility is good. So you don't have to add solar credits, and then that mixes all things up with LIHTC and whatnot.
I'm looking at your list of questions to see if there's any we missed, and the last one was discuss review procedures and timelines similar to site plan review but quicker. And I'm just curious, is that possible?
Just write that in the bylaw.
Well, the proposal is 90 days. I think that's really tight. It's great, but it's rare that any board I've worked with has been able to do something in 90 days. But we're going to have to watch to see what happens with the state because they may take care of that for us. But we have some ideas about a term that we could propose to that point. If you have your recommendation as well, we'll be glad to take it.
So you would write that into the bylaw that it would, if it were not reviewed within 90 days, then it would be granted by right or something?
We would have some kind of administrative approval, but I really think we should have an administrative. If we don't have a deadline, with site plan review in particular, it can be fraught. So you've got a lot of professionals over here, so we're definitely going to take care of that.
I think it's possible that a timeline like that belongs in your rules and regulations for your reviewable projects, potentially more so than the bylaw itself, but I'd be willing to have that
I second that.
conversation.
Sometimes it's really, really tough with the greatest intention to expedite things. Sometimes just with scheduling, it's tough to do, and to have that in there is just a burn that I think you're going to get people trying to game that and get things passed that's not that should take some more consideration sometimes. I don't want to give that up, but I believe the board is committed to expediting things. I don't see us saying, well, we'll get to it when we get to it. I think we've always made allowances saying we'll start earlier or we'll stay a little later to squeeze that meeting in. We've always done that. So I don't think making a rule is something that is necessary. It's just adding more stuff to it. If we weren't doing it, I'd say, yeah, let's look into it. But
Yeah, that's the only thing that I can think of is some way to give priority to an all affordable project. But then again, we're probably not going to go bumping other projects that were already scheduled for a hearing. But, yeah, like you said, I don't think we have a history of taking a year to schedule a hearing. I think it's usually faster than that.
I will say the comment was written when we were just getting started with site plan review, and the board and staff were all getting acclimated with it. So I will say the past few projects that have been under the MBTA overlay have been going wonderfully. So the comment is a little bit on the older side, and you guys have been doing a really good job lately.
And
so.
if site plan review is getting more structured under state law, then we might be getting ahead of ourselves by even trying to fix limits that might be superseded.
I think, I believe, or at least one of the versions incorporated time limits and constructive approval.
Thank you. I'm going to call. You got some?
Oh, just I appreciated the comments that our rules and regs might be the right place for us for this, and our retreat is coming up in the not too distant future, and I think there are probably some other things in our rules and regs that we wanted to talk about. So maybe we get this on the agenda for the retreat.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, and I think we'll send you our comments, or we have any additional comments, and let me know if you feel like you need more input from us. I will be happy to schedule another time to work with you guys. I think you guys do a great job. What you've done is a tremendous amount of work already.
Thank you. We appreciate the work you've done here tonight. And we especially appreciate Sarah Suarez has been doing so much support for this effort. It's amazing. Yes. Thank you.
I think we all.
No idea. She's a superstar.
But let's keep the communications going.
Thank you.
And if you need more time, we'll make time for you. Okay. So just work it through Sarah or Claire, and we will definitely make time for this. It's important to us for this. Okay.
Really appreciate it.
At our next meeting, which I think is August 18th, we're going to schedule the public meetings in the fall, so we'll let you know when they are.
So community meetings.
Okay. You could do it in town hall, or you could do it in here.
At a high school. Whichever place is less expensive.
Okay. I think it's free here, isn't it? Thank you. Our next agenda is discuss about short-term goals from the comprehensive plan. Claire, do you want to start off?
Yeah, sure, I'd love to. This agenda item was a request of Vince's a while ago, Mr. Godin. And I took the opportunity to go through the comprehensive plan and pull out the short-term goals that, at least in the comp plan, indicated that the ARB has some responsibility for, whether that's partial or full. Most of these you would have a hand in one way or the other. And so I thought we could go through them, in particular the land use goals. And I can certainly give you an update on where we are on some of those, and I welcome any discussion or any discussion around any of these. And so I'll start with LU3, which is to leverage town-owned properties for redevelopment that adds housing, commercial, and open space uses responsive to community needs and interests. This goal was of great interest to the board when you voted to approve the comprehensive plan, and in particular we mentioned the Russell Common Lot as a site, and that is in the comp plan it is identified and called out as such. We have been looking at DPCD in my office for an opportunity to do some feasibility work and planning work around that site. And not just that site, but sort of Arlington Center at large. See not just if there's opportunities for Russell Common, but opportunities like that property at 366 Mass Ave, etc. One of the things we talked about doing, or at least exploring, is the idea of an urban renewal plan potentially for the center. What an urban renewal plan allows you to do is it's a very extensive planning effort with multiple opportunities for public comment and involvement. It is a very intense effort. It's something I've had experience with, not in Arlington, but in other towns that I've worked in. That would, what that allows the town to do is to take property via eminent domain for development. And the development is vested in the public interest, which is explained in the plan, in the urban renewal plan. Another thing we could potentially do is just look at Russell Common Lot itself, what the potential is there for development of, whether it's residential, commercial, both. Parking certainly would need to be replicated, I think, on that site, or any other creative scheme that may result in potential development of that lot. I'm curious if the board is still interested in that. But it is, I will say our new transportation planner started today, so we will have more capacity in our office to explore planning efforts such as those. All right.
Are there any comments from the board? Steve?
There's, depending on, there are a couple of sites, I think, where urban renewal plans would make sense. 360 Mass Ave is one of them. 111 Broadway is obviously another one. I do think the Russell Common parking lot would be probably, it seems like a bigger. I'm trying to think how to say this. Try to get the most bang for the buck.
Yeah.
I think Russell Common would give a lot of bang for the buck potentially.
Definitely.
Yes?
So the Russell Common Lot is definitely like the biggest opportunity, just biggest geometrically. But I'm wondering, in support of LU3, if we could, do we have a list of town-owned properties that are, and presumably then you'd want to look at town-owned properties that are not kind of currently like the high school or something like that.
Right.
So something like that in support of LU3, I think if we could get that for the next time we talk about this, that would be helpful. But we're aware that Russell Common is the biggest one. I think starting small might be interesting, and I think I've brought up some ideas before just in person of, could we do some sort of little like visioning competition for the lot where we get members of the public involved. So it doesn't necessarily, I know planning can operate by kind of, you get a grant for a consultant and a big project, but you could also start just by dipping your toes in the water by getting some interest while you're lining up all of the rest of it. So that's something I'd like to continue to explore.
Okay.
Michelle?
Right.
I don't have anything to add to that.
Jen?
Nothing in addition.
I only have one comment I wouldn't mind adding is we should put some sort of document together and saying what's the percentage of commercial housing, multi-use. And that stuff we have. I know we have some of the started already. We just get it organized as part of this package here. And then compare that to other towns. And then I want to determine and understand why we need to do this. I want to be perfectly clear, saying, well, we need to do this for the following reasons. One of my things I'm thinking about is people say, oh, you always want to grow, but I want to explain why we want to, why growth is healthy. And my understanding of it is, right now we have a tax override every 5 years or 4 years.
3.
Okay. But we have a tax override, okay? It's because we don't have enough taxes to support our town the way we spend. So we have several options. Just like you know, if you run your family, either you make more money, you spend less by cutting services, or you grow. You know, I mean, you know, one or the other. So if you know we decide that you know no, we don't want to spend any more money, then let's see what we can cut. Or let's say no, we don't want to cut anything. We want more service. We want this town to be more beautiful. We want this. Then we have to do this. I want to put that in perspective of all these other things, and I think it makes a much better understanding of people wanting, accepting what we want to do. I think having that little thing up front will help a lot, and it helps me a lot just thinking about what I want and what I don't want. Okay, and that's my suggestion.
Great.
That's all I had. Thank you.
I'll just quickly go through some of these others. Streamline the development review time. This is LU5. Streamline the development review timeline for proposed projects while maintaining the ARB's oversight of key design elements. We are launching, we have just kicked off a development design guidelines project that we are hopeful the staff will be able to use for our preliminary meetings with developers. The plan is to get feedback from the ARB, what you're looking for, what sorts of design standards are acceptable, you know, really rather than have people come in and learn, you know, at the first meeting what the board is thinking in terms of design. It's something that we can memorialize and use early on when staff is working with developers. I think that is something that will really assist with the speed of some of these approvals to have better application materials coming in front of the board. And so that is something that we're working on right now. I don't know if anybody has any comments on that.
Steve?
So wait, did you get to LU6?
Nope.
Not yet.
All right, I'll hold that.
Okay.
Vince?
I have to say I don't really know how to tackle this one. You know, it's either a rewrite of the zoning bylaw to make it more by right and less discretionary, or it's adding meetings to the board calendar, or it's splitting the board into two boards where you have one that deals with warrant articles and another one that deals with projects. I mean, there's different ways to approach it. I don't know which one to take. I don't know if you've got other suggestions, but it's a good one to keep talking about.
Joe?
Don't have any further comments.
Jane?
I do think to the extent that we can become clear amongst ourselves what we want to see from developers, what we want it to look like, whether the things we've asked to see really are what we want to be reviewing, or if there are things on that list that aren't helpful or are articulated or stated in a way that are not yielding the documents that we want to see. That would be helpful to make sure that sort of as Claire alluded to, the packages we receive have in them the information we need. I think we can all think of groups that have come before us and we've been able to, within one meeting, approve them with administrative review, right? And groups that we've sent back half a dozen times because they just didn't understand or did understand and didn't produce what it was we needed. So I think that's some two-way work we need to do. And I guess another piece of that is is we might want to have an honest conversation with ourselves about what is it that we're reviewing, right? Like, are there things that we're commenting on and asking developers to work on that really are outside our purview? Maybe the answer is no, in which case, let's just continue on. But let's sort of have it. I think at our retreat, it would be good to have an introspective moment about how we look at projects.
Thank you. Claire, I do have one comment. I'm just piggybacking off a former chair and having some design guidelines that we can look at, that can that you guys can have to show all the developers. Whenever we meet with developers, they always say, "What do you want?"
Yeah.
Or what is it, you know? And so if we show them some images and stuff that, you know, that the board have looked at and say, yeah, this is something what we're looking at because it has these kind of characteristics. I'm not saying it's zoning law or it's regulations or anything, but this is like an image of what we're looking for. You know, it addresses the activity in the street. It's an attractive building because it's somewhat set back. It's not intruding. It does show green, all sorts of stuff that we can all talk about, and just have images and say, hey, this is stuff that we think we like, and they can take it from there. Because we're not their architect, we're not their designers, we're not their but we can show them images and say, hey, let's do that. That'd be my suggestion.
Great. LU6, Steve, conduct an audit of the zoning bylaw to align with modern uses and allow greater flexibility, especially in business and industrial districts.
So I would request that we start with parking, off-street parking requirements.
Yep.
As members of the board know, the Capitol Square Theater is my favorite non-conforming parcel when it comes to parking. That theater, that building would require about 300 spaces, off-street spaces, if it were built today. My second favorite non-conforming parcel when it comes to parking is the hardware store in the Heights. By current zoning, that would require 13 spaces, and there are not enough square feet of lot space to fit 13 spaces. So there's one of the grumblings that we often hear is about commercial site being redeveloped, and there's less commercial space because the old site was built out to the corners of the lot lines and there were no off-street parking requirements. And we have I'll say they're very suburban, to say the least. So I think this would be an area where I think it's an important area to tackle, especially if we are serious about having more commercial development.
Yeah.
We don't want, people building parking lots in a small building to subsidize them.
Thank you. Vince?
I'm just curious if, to some extent, the right-sizing zoning report acts. I guess this is an audit would go a little bit beyond what that report does, which is just point out some of the areas where a zoning bylaw is not up to date or aligned with our goals. But an audit would have to go beyond just pointing that out and providing, I guess, specific recommendations. Do you imagine, what I'm getting at is, do you imagine that this would be a project that we would hire a consultant for and get like that kind of a project?
I think there's a lot of ways I think we could approach it, and one is, find a good entry point like Steve suggested, which is parking, and see what staff can do with that evaluation, working with the board, and see what we can do. Potentially, if this is another meeting like the one we're having, or in our retreat, something like that. If this was going to be a whole hog, let's do it all at the same time, then I think we would have to hire a consultant.
Great. Yeah, I don't think we're at a point where we can decide exactly what we're going to do.
Exactly.
So I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Michelle?
Agreed. I think it would be any way that we can sort of streamline would be helpful, but I haven't run into enough of the zoning bylaw yet to see where that would be, with the exception of I agree with the parking, and potentially the bike parking. We just need more flexibility, in places where there's a bus line right in front, where it's an old building, and a place where potentially the worker population might be coming from far away and might not be likely to bike. Just a little more flexibility there. And then I'm sure there's other places in the zoning bylaw that things could be streamlined and made simpler, but I'm not aware of them yet. So I look forward to learning about them.
Thank you. Shannon?
Nothing additional.
I would echo what Steve said, and also I would add in one more. And the one I want to add in is we should look into why we don't have a nice high-end restaurant in town. But it's because of the zoning regulations, because we don't allow for the right size. I mean, I've been talking to some realtors, and they say, yeah, because you need a special permit in order to get, a restaurant above a certain size, like 3,000 square feet. And you need a certain size in order to have that kind of high-end restaurant. So if the town doesn't want high-end restaurant, that's fine. But if we do, then let's see if we can adjust that in this thing here, saying, look, we've been hamstringing ourselves because the way the zoning law is, it doesn't allow us to allow for a high-end restaurant. Or maybe we do, I don't know. But I'm questioning that.
That's something we can certainly uncover in an audit or a focused review, by staff, especially if we go bit by bit. All right. And I think the reference to modern uses here, where we're starting to have, where we were having some challenges in permitting, was some of these fitness studios that are going in, and how they are or are not defined in the zoning bylaw. I don't know. That's just a comment that I have.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then I'll do LU7, which is to monitor new construction in multifamily housing overlay districts to evaluate the diversity of housing types produced, levels of affordability achieved, and the amount of commercial space developed. If needed, consider zoning modifications to better promote the desired types of development. I think that there's a really interesting sort of statistic, or at least an item that came out of town meeting this year, and that is that, using our MBTA communities overlay zone, multifamily housing overlay districts, we have created almost 10 times the amount of commercial space than we have in our regular mixed use zoning over the past year or so, maybe even longer. I think that the multifamily housing overlay districts have, really done pretty much what they were laid out to do, by putting commercial, opportunity where there was no before. I mean, remember that overlay only goes over residential parcels, and so this is commercial space that would otherwise not be there, or that wasn't there previously. As well as certain levels of affordability. I think, I wonder about our affordability bonus, and how we best apply it, especially when we're starting to talk about, are we combining bonuses, what are we doing? I think we could have a very productive conversation around that. It's, again, something that I think we, can certainly track in my office, or in the office with staff, but, continue the conversation here with the board as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is there any questions from the board? Okay, you want to move on to the next page, or you think you want to skip over that?
Sure. I'll just say briefly that the ARB was identified as having at least some involvement in goal ED2, H2, H4, and H12. I think, H4, we talked about Affordable Housing Overlay District this evening. H2, I'm not exactly clear on what the board's involvement in that one may be. And then H12, I think what I'd like to see, we don't get involved very often in this board with ADUs. However, we do get involved quite often in design. And if there was an opportunity for some sort of, I believe on the state side we've talked a lot, or we've heard a lot of information about, well, what about a pattern book of an ADUs, or pre-approved designs for ADUs or something like that. I would imagine that this board would be involved in, at the very least, reviewing what those design standards might be for Arlington. Go ahead.
Boston has a nice pattern book.
Oh, excellent.
We should steal it.
I'll just check that one off, Steve.
Okay.
And if you don't want to do a design out of the pattern book, you can kind of keep doing it the normal way. But if you pick a design out of the pattern book, you should be able to walk in the morning with an application and walk out in the afternoon with an approval. And I think that would just make a huge difference for people who are looking to do a simple ADU project.
I really don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but that's okay.
In an ideal world.
In an ideal world. Okay. Thank you very much. And of course, we can continue. I will continue to update the board on these short-term goals, and you will definitely be hearing more about them, as we continue to work on them.
Pattern book should be easy, especially in the neighborhoods where all of the houses are cookie cutter. It's like, there aren't a lot of choices. It's just exactly, they all look the same. So.
Do you have a garage?
Exactly. It is concrete from 1923? Yes.
All right.
Thank you for putting that together, Claire.
I'm going to move on because we're running late,
Yeah.
and I apologize. Next on our agenda is Arlington Heights Business District. Can I ask Katie to step up and join us here?
Hello, everyone. All right. All right. For the record, I'm Katie Lusai, the Economic Development Coordinator. Here to just give an update on the Arlington Heights Business District. Oh, thank you, Sarah. So the Arlington Heights Business District is a rezoning initiative with the goal of promoting the long-term vibrancy of Arlington Heights. Pardon this slide is a little wordy. Present-day Arlington Heights does not provide enough support for current businesses or future business growth. The current zoning has created small scattered parcels that make it difficult for businesses to expand or for new businesses to locate in the district. Many of the existing commercial buildings are also older, much older, and need significant updates or renovation. They're very costly for the existing businesses to maintain. Together, these challenges make it harder to attract new businesses and encourage investment in the Heights. So, to attract and support new business in the Heights, the current zoning should be updated to encourage appropriate commercial growth and redevelopment. Property owners should be incentivized, as we discussed tonight, to invest in and improve their buildings, creating a more vibrant, we love the word vibrant, don't we, and appealing business district. By adding more localized housing, increasing foot traffic through pedestrian-friendly improvements, as is being discussed at Town Hall tonight at the Select Board meeting, while reassessing parking options will help support local businesses. Investing in our public spaces, such as streetscapes, plazas, landscaping, and gathering areas, will help foster a welcoming environment that strengthens the business community and encourages residents and visitors to shop, dine, and spend more time in Arlington Heights. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this summer, we're working through the initial draft zoning, which I'll talk about in just a second. Most recently, the committee met on July 27th to discuss the initial zoning proposal. Since then, DPCD has received feedback from the Arlington Heights Action Plan Implementation Committee, which we are integrating into the draft zoning proposal. We're now seeking commentary this evening from the board, and we'll be continuing with zoning draft revisions and continued public engagement with the goal of bringing this to town meeting in 2027. Next slide, please. So rather than writing an entirely new district from scratch, we currently propose rezoning the Heights into an inner core and an outer core area by using the existing B5 and B2A designations. This simple shift meets our stated goals of reducing zoning complexity as cited in the comprehensive plan and addressing the development challenges identified by the right zoning fit? Something like that. Right size zoning by MAPC while directly implementing the vision of the Heights Action Plan. Next slide, please. So this map highlights the 160 parcels included in the proposal at this time, showing the core B5 central areas shaded in purple. It's a little hard to see. Tried to replicate the colors in the existing zoning bylaw, which is also not very easy to identify. And the B2 areas in red. It creates a clear transition between high-density activity nodes and adjacent residential neighborhoods. Next slide, please. So as previously mentioned, we're continuing public engagement with 2 property owner roundtables scheduled for later in August and in early September, tabling at Town Day and a public forum to take place in October or November. Exact date to be determined yet. So this evening really wants to thank you for listening. And we'd like to hear from the board on your initial reactions and feedback regarding, again, this initial zoning proposal.
Thank you, Katie. I just want to make a couple of quick comments. A while back, the board decided that there actually is 3 centers for business districts. One is East Arlington, one is Central Arlington, and the other one is the Heights. And we decided to work on the Heights first, and we'll be addressing the other districts in forthcoming years. So just to give a bigger, broader picture, that's why Katie's been focusing mainly on the Heights. But we have not forgotten about the other centers in town. But there are essentially 3 designated centers right now in town. Okay. Does the board have any comments on Steve?
Yeah, because I can be picky about language.
Please.
I would suggest walkable rather than vibrant, because I think they both mean the same thing, but walkable is a little more concrete, I think. So general thoughts. This is, I think, in a way, a simplification of what has been proposed earlier. I like it. I think it makes a lot of sense to reuse existing districts, and to the extent that they need to be tweaked a little bit to work for the Heights, the other places where those districts appear on the map, it's just going to benefit them. I think B5 is an appropriate choice for the core, and I like the use of B2A as a step-down transition to the surrounding neighborhoods. So far, so good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vince?
Yeah, thank you. I haven't been able to make any of the Heights committee meetings, and I wish I had, but I'm glad to see that this work has been going well. So I agree with Steve. I have a couple of questions about, one is that the B5 zone, like some of the other business zone, has multiple heights, and which one you can use depends on whether or not you're adjacent to residential parcels. It's the reduced height buffer area provision. And so the parcels that are on the south side there, which are adjacent to residential parcels, would be much more limited in height. I don't know if the intention was to keep that requirement, but it would limit what you could do there. A lot of those parcels are on a slope, so that you could look at that in a couple of different ways. One way is that the height is going to be measured from some midpoint, so that for the residential parcels, the buildings are not actually going to be that high because they're coming from downslope. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, if you're looking at the slope from Mass Ave, you'd have taller buildings or lower buildings. I'm not sure if the intention was to have them remain. What I'm getting at is that I would suggest that because we want this to be a vibrant business district and a walkable business district, we might say that the reduced height buffer does not apply to B5, or at least to B5 in the Heights.
Vince, that's a very good question, and I would say that we haven't gotten there yet, as far as looking at that level of thought yet. But you do bring up a good point.
Sure. I guess I'm just trying to illustrate some of the kind of things that they're going to need to discuss. Another one is FAR. FAR is one of the many ways that we control the size of buildings, but in my mind, especially for a business district, it's doing exactly the opposite of what we want. We want more stuff, right? Like FAR is a measure of how much stuff you can put on a lot. So you could put the same amount of stuff in one big flat building or in one smaller, taller building. I don't see why we should be limiting it at all, because we have other dimensional requirements that are doing a much better job of limiting the height and the setbacks. So, and FAR varies by use. So we have a higher FAR for a mixed use building, but a lower FAR for certain uses. And I don't think that we have fully justified the logic of that. I would suggest looking at reducing or eliminating the FAR requirements.
Yeah, something we haven't talked in too much detail about, because then that would mean changing the FAR for B5. But in the 2019 MAPC plan, they recommended eliminating the FAR completely.
Yeah, and if we were to do that for B5, it would merit a look at the other B5 parcels outside of the Heights, which is obviously not directly in the committee's scope, but it might make sense to just bring that proposal to the town and say, hey, if we're going to do it in the Heights, it might make sense everywhere. That's all I had. I think it's a good simplification. It really does make it much more clear for businesses. And I do want to say that size, like you mentioned, small parcels, I'm sure it is harder for businesses for landlords to redevelop small parcels, but I also think it's really important because there's a lot of businesses that can't afford to rent out a big space, so those small parcels are really important. So we're not trying to eliminate them, but the simplification is really helpful so that they're all playing by the same rules.
Thank you, Vince. Michelle?
Great. I was curious, actually just looking at the zoning map to understand, I thought I saw it somewhere in their materials, but now I can't find it, and it was one of the questions I had come up with. But there's, at Bow Street, there's the little triangle.
Yep.
And then there's a chunk that is a commercial building now, but is not included. And is that
Correct.
Is that Millbrook? Is that a wetland issue? Why is that not included?
Fabulous question. So we specifically did not include any parcels zoned industrial. So it's 3 different parcels. It's all shared under common ownership. It's 3040 Park Ave, 5060 Lowell, also known as the former Gold's Gym site. We've specifically kept that out for a number of different reasons. One, because we have so little industrial zoned land in town in Arlington. And 2, to take a step back and look at the other opportunities for redevelopment and make sure that whatever we are rezoning those parcels to, is done with the highest and best use possible in mind.
And is the tax benefit of industrial higher than that of commercial?
No.
No.
No, it's not. I think
It's more from protecting the uses.
it's the same thing when we did MBTA. We set a goal saying that we're not going to focus on any of the business districts or commercial businesses, and just see how we can do to encourage more housing and have some incentive for commercial base. And we took the same approach for this business district here, and we left the industrial zone, and we'll address that at a later date when we look at focusing on how can we improve industrial stuff. So that was our conscious effort to do that. That's why it's sort of left out.
Okay. Yeah, I would just encourage the board and the committee to consider, I think any time you can give a developer the flexibility to decide what works the best for them and that landowner. I mean, do they want to continue that? Would they love to sell it? Who knows? So I would just say, unless there was a compelling reason that our tax base is much improved by industrial right there, it may stay industrial. Why not keep it both? Great. But I would hate to lose an opportunity for, the big businesses that you're talking about, or, who knows, a WeWork, whatever, there might be other options that could help our tax base.
Thank you.
Yeah, so right now those sites have, the land value ratios are pretty high. Somewhere on the order of, I think around 80%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're pretty good size. They're not.
What does that mean? Sorry, I don't understand that.
So land value ratio is you take the value of the land and you divide it by the value of the property. So that 80%, a land value ratio of 80% means the parcel, 80% of its value is from the land and 20% is from the buildings,
Sure.
which is sort of the opposite from where you would ideally want to be from a tax perspective.
Yeah, all I'm saying, if we could potentially grow there, and what's-
Definitely. It's
Yeah.
something we've gone back and forth on continuously on whether or not to
Yeah.
include it, and that's
Sure.
both from the town perspective and from our discussions with the property owner.
Understood. Thanks.
Shannon?
I think I would echo my colleague Steve in particular, but I have nothing further.
Thank you. I think this is great, what you got here so far, Katie. I just want to add in a few more things. That this is a draft, and there's a few other things that the committee has done. We've done a survey of all the existing commercial businesses in that area, and taking some planning norms where I think it's what you need 25 people living in a certain walking distance to support 1 foot of storefront is a norm. So we see we balance, we have too much, we have too little, and we did a survey of the whole thing, and it came out that we have just about right normal now, as is. Give or take, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But if we want to grow the commercial and retail and whatever space there, we have to add more foot traffic and introduce more housing or more density. So we've done some stuff for that we'll introduce that in here, so we can say, hey, here's what we've done, here's what we found, and here's what we're proposing. That's why we're proposing this. So we'll be putting that in there. Another aspect of this that we'll be adding in is parking. We've spoken to some of the owners of these spaces, and they say, no, there's not enough parking. Well, we did a parking survey, and not only the Heights, but all 3 districts, because it's more economical to do all 3.
For Arlington Heights and East Arlington.
Yes. And so we're pretty well, we're not really underparked, but we're not overparked either. But
No.
So we're also in good shape there too, sort of.
We need a little bit better parking management, but this is a work in progress.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. And then we've also done surveys of what people want in that area. They want more communal spaces. They want more walkable spaces. And that goes back to the line of, well, who's going to pay for all that stuff? We're going to raise taxes so we can have more stuff in there? Or what? So we're also looking at things of maybe introducing parking meters. This is all still up there, okay?
Yeah.
And those parking meters could fund some of that stuff, trash cans, lights, stuff what's happening in the center of town right now. There's some upgrades in the center of town that's happening with that. So there's all that stuff that's happening, not only by just changing the zoning, things are going to change that center. There are also a lot of things happening besides changing zoning. The town's made a commitment into upgrading certain things and doing things, and maybe introduce a meter so that we can have some fun to pay for some of the stuff there. We're talking to the owners and see what we can do to help them incentivize what they want to do. That's a good added 2 roundtables we're doing. There's one more thing I want to add into this timeline here, if we can, is I want to talk to leasing agents and brokers, see what they think we need there, and add it to that roundtable there, and add another slot in for the for roundtable, and see. So it's you know it's the landowners, it's the businesses, and it's the brokers, and that we need to understand what they want, and what they need, what we can do to support them to get this thing growing. So we're going to add that in there too. So these are all the things that we're doing. And I just want to introduce it today as an update of what's going on, and see if there's any other suggestions you may have that maybe we're overseeing or not doing or whatever. That or come to a meeting, and and go from there. And yes, Michelle, that I'll call it the gold gym site, okay? That has been very well debated back and forth. Should it be included? Should it not be included? And it's been going around and around. And right now, it is not.
See how it goes.
Okay.
But would changing from industrial to B5 be upzoning or downzoning? Does industrial offer more possibilities or fewer, or is it just different uses?
That's a good question.
Because
I think it's a question of, even if we were to change it to B5, would that be flexible? Would that really achieve the highest and best use for the site and include all the amenities for the public that would ideally have?
If you wanted to encourage non-mixed use commercial, changing I to B5 would be a terrible mistake. And that's that is simply a function of any other permitted use and the associated use regulations in B5 and every other business district we have.
it's a long discussion, and
yeah.
we decided to table it. But one of the things that we looked at highly was Mass Ave is a transportation route. Everybody is going to work or coming back from work, living in the surrounding neighbors, going through Mass Ave or Park Street. It's high traffic. So what we want to do is encourage businesses, foot traffic. What's going to make them stop there and shop?
Mm-hmm.
So there's all these things that we're looking at, and one of the biggest things that I'm curious about on this next meeting is what's going to encourage the business owners to invest money in their property. Because we can change all the zoning we want, but if the owners don't want to invest any money, or have no interest in doing that, they're not gonna, So I think we have to send some sort of initiative, say, oh, that owner there spent a little money and fixed up his property more. He's making a lot more money now, and he's got a lot more foot traffic, so forth, making more money.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other owners will follow suit. But they're not going to just say, "Hey,
It's got to make sense. Yeah,
I'm
totally
going to pull
agree.
money out of my pocket and just spend it because people think it'll look nice." So it's a hard wrestle right now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been a long time. And I don't know, anything else, Katie, you want to add?
No, I thank you. Thank you. That's all I have to add.
All right, I think that's a good update for what's going on here for now, for this.
Nice work overall. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, next on the agenda is project update. Oh, thank you for so much patience, Kate. I'm sorry to you sit there. This is something that I've asked Claire to summarize for all the projects we have updated, that we have approved and reviewed in the last couple of years, and see what the status of those projects are at. Can you get bigger or? Okay. Claire, do you want to start off, or?
Sure, and I don't want to necessarily get too into the details here. I think that this chart is great. It gives a good explanation of where we are with some of these outstanding projects, and sort of assigns either DPCD or ISD the job of continuing to update the board on some of these projects. I do want to point out, I included, along with this spreadsheet, the deed restriction for mixed-use development at the 1207 Mass Ave, which is the hotel site. I've been getting a lot of questions, or periodically I get questions about, is there a clawback provision potentially in the BNS and the deed itself? But what I have found in research, or what the office has found in the research that we've done, is that while there's no clawback provision in particular, there is a deed restriction on the use of the property, which is mixed use. So that would mean right now we're talking about a hotel, potentially with a restaurant on the first floor, but what we would be, which is sort of, I guess, a sort of a form of housing above a commercial space. We would be looking at something really similar. This does not preclude a 40B for the site, which has not been, proposed or suggested at any point, but, that's, I think, another question that has come up. But any development, any 40B, type development would still require that mixed use, would still have a mixed use requirement as part of the development. I also included a memo that I wrote after your meeting with the applicant, the developers for 200 Mass Ave. I wrote this memo for the town manager, who then asked if it could be forwarded to the select board, and we did that, and so I wanted to include it also as part of the materials this evening. Just sort of gives a recap of what was decided that evening and what is happening now. We will follow up with inspectional services to see where the applicant is in terms of providing the updated drawings we requested, the updated drawings that are also required by ISD. But we would, I would have to get some more information for you to give you a full update on that project. But I think this is a good snapshot of where we are, and again, happy to keep the board updated as these projects progress.
So, regarding the first item on the list, 1511 Mass Ave,
Yes.
Does staff have any insight into the applicant's decision to sell?
That's a great question. I think that is on the table for the developer. It's something that they have discussed with the office. That's not a done deal by any means. I think the latest conversation we had with the applicant for that project was that they were going to hold on to it. So I think they are still making decisions about how they are going to move forward. I think we did have a meeting. Staff had a meeting with the applicant and the chair, and we made it very clear to them that it was not our desire that they sell the project. We were very invested in them, being their own tenants on the first floor, etc. And they agreed that had been part of the conversation, and so they were, still somewhat committed to, at the very least, being tenants in that commercial space.
Steve, we did reach an agreement on the fenestration of the transformer at the corner of the building.
Yeah.
So I think we mutually agreed. I think it'll look nicer than what was there before. So I think that's all set. So
it's something that we should take a look at and be, I think, pretty sensitive to in the future, is the location of the transformer. I think the utility is they are very clear and prescriptive in their requirements, and I think that maybe this is something we could even look at in our development design guideline project, is transformer location and what the recommendation of the board is. And if that's to put it underground, then it's to put it underground. But, you know, it has, at least on a few projects that have been approved recently, come up as either as an administrative approval or as, you know, come back to the board if you can't figure out where to put the transformer, and I think it's become a real hurdle.
Can I just go some of these?
Sure, please.
That takes you to 1511, okay? Just get you up there, Michelle, okay? If you don't know all these buildings.
Look them up on Google Maps as we go.
Okay, well, this one was a mixed-use building with underground parking, or ground floor parking on the first floor. The biggest issue was the location of the transformer at the corner of the building. We didn't want a big grill there on the corner of the building. And that's sort of been resolved now. We pushed the grill back. 1398 is just a Subway, or no, that's Jersey Mike's.
Jersey Mike's.
They're open now, so that's, we'll just cross that out. 1306 is a storefront right in the Heights that's boarded up, painted kind of this reddish orange or red.
Well, it's only 1/3 boarded up now.
Yes, and they are working on it. I don't know what happened, but they just ordered the wrong glass and just went over. It's been bricked up for a long time, and it's been an eyesore. So they're moving along. That's good. Claire talked about this already at 1211, 1207, which was approved, I don't know, how many years ago?
20.
It was before COVID, okay?
Yes.
And it was for a hotel, and then COVID hit, and then it got delayed. And then they couldn't find anybody to flag that hotel, so now he's sitting on it, so we just want to figure out what our rights are. And so that's where that status is. 887 is the project next to the high school. It's a really thin pancake kind of like building. We approved it with a tree in the corner of the project, and the tree died. And we said, well, you still owns a tree, so they're going to put back another tree. But all those apartments are condos, so you're not dealing with one owner. You got to talk to all of them and get them to buy, all the owners to buy one tree to pot in there. Okay, so we are working on that. Well, you know how things are. Okay, 882, which is a building right across the street from that. They put in the storefront the wrong color, and they're in the process of painting it this summer.
Correct.
A few years later, but and they're going to touch up a few other things there, but that was the major thing. This one here is, I don't know what's happening. This is the Atwood House, 821. It's right next to CES right now. You can't even see it because all it is just paved over grass. But there's supposed to be a mixed-use building there, and the owner's basically in Florida and won't return our calls, right?
Yeah, not just DPCD, but I have been I've connected with his attorney that represented him in the process as well. She says she can't get a hold of him, so we will continue to try, even if it requires, sending a certified letter or something like that. We will
Or
continue
we
to
have to
reach
do
out.
what we did last time. Is
Yeah.
reopen the
Reopen the permit, reopen it.
reopen the permit. 'Cause,
Yeah.
That one's been going on since I started on board about 11 years ago, so that's how long it's been going on. 449, I'm assuming that's,
That's the project you were just out on,
yes.
the 455 map.
They redid the elevations based on our second approval.
Okay. They look better.
If you squint and you're about a block away, it looks okay. But when you get there, I don't know who called themselves an architect, but the cornice there doesn't match up with the existing cornice, and the workmanship is just a bunch of goop and caulk and paint. But it's beyond our jurisdiction, I'm assuming. It's just going to be, we'll see them in a couple of years.
Did they say they would replace the signage, though?
He said he'll look into it because I hated that blue sign.
It Yeah.
But that is the logo color for the dentist.
It
And so,
it just looks like temp signage.
yes.
It doesn't fit in the space particularly well.
Well, I
I
looked
mean, the color is one thing, it just doesn't,
at,
it looks like they,
well, the quality of the signage is really poor. It's going to have to be replaced in a few years, and then we'll be talking about getting a proper sign. But I agree with you.
it's too small. It's just too small.
Okay, and then 363, it's that building that was shown on the affordable housing overlay. And it's just a bunch of condo owners fighting about this because so it's been sitting empty for the longest time. It was all boarded up. And hopefully we'll get something going, right?
Well, that can't be 363. That's a
366.
366. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just,
No, that's
Did my
fine. I
numbers.
was going to say it was on the wrong side of the street.
190 and 200 Mass Ave, we just looked at that recently and approved their changes, and I guess they're fixing the plans and they should be pulling a permit fairly soon. I noticed they started construction again,
Mhm.
so
That's the one at Capitol Square.
yes, right next to Capitol Square, okay, the one, the big hole in the ground right now. 259, they're just waiting for the demo permit to mature, right? Because they have a 1 year delay or 2 year delay.
1 year.
1 year. So once that's done, they'll start construction. 126, 128 Broadway.
So in the last week, they have cleared the sites. So
Okay.
it is now a vacant lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
I haven't been down that street. Okay.
Very recently.
Okay, and so that's good. That's going good.
Mm-hmm.
And 30 Mystic Street. That was some sort of Asian club that was done.
Chinese Cultural Center.
What?
Chinese Cultural Center.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know what's happening there. They've done no work. I see nothing happening there.
They are slowly. There was the owner put in geothermal. They put in geothermal
Right.
heating into the property, and they've been encountering, I believe, some issues with that, which kind of slowed the progress. But I spoke to the engineer on the project within the past month or two, and it's still supposed to go forward. So
Okay.
it's possible.
Geothermal's a no-go because we tried at the high school and that didn't work.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all the projects we've done and approved and the stats update. I just wanted to make sure, see where we're at and just a good circle around, make sure that all the stuff is still being followed.
There
through.
are a couple more. 225 Broadway, which is also demoed, and it's a vacant lot with a hole in the ground.
Did you have up to the list? 225?
225. That was the fourplex. The quadruple decker.
Okay.
And also, I think it was 9 or 18 Grafton Street. It was the triple decker with the 5 units. They've gotten, as of last week, they had the first floor, the rough framing on the first floor, and so you can see the outline of the building. Looks good.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that's it.
I'll have to run this by you next time when I go. I missed those two. Thank you. And we'll just keep this up as an ongoing kind of list. Make sure if things get done, we just cross them out.
Mhm.
All right. Okay. Next we have is new business tonight. And it's the first discussion, the draft of NAPC. Claire, do you want to talk about that, or?
Sure. I'm actually going to hand that over to Sarah, who's been doing most of the work on that. I believe what we're looking for this evening are some comments or discussion points from the board on the draft, this is a draft, document that MAPC has produced.
Yes, so thank you. The town is a part of the Metro Mayor's Housing Task Force, which is run by MAPC, Metro Area Planning Council. And one of the things that the town, this Housing Task Force is made up of 16 other communities in our region, and we've committed to looking at different ways to increase our housing production in our communities in an effort to address the housing shortage that we're having. So MAPC was tasked with basically analyzing all of the 16 communities that were included in, that are in this group, to look at our zoning bylaws and to start with multifamily housing and see how all of the zoning districts kind of measure against each other. Multifamily housing in their case is considered 3 families and above. So Arlington zoning right now does not allow any 3-family by right. So the report reflects that Arlington is very, very, very 100% non-conforming because we don't allow any 3-family by right outside of, we do now with the multifamily housing overlay. But so what the report is, look, this is the first draft, or it's been through a couple of drafts, but we're reviewing the Arlington section right now for any inaccuracies, any clarification that's needed, any sort of changes that we want to see. It is only the Arlington portion, so I mean, it's still missing. I mean, there are other parts that will be coming out with it shortly to give more context, but you know, what you're looking at right now is just a rundown of the Arlington zoning, how it began, where we're at now, and a list of recommendations that we could remove some barriers to housing production.
Thank you.
Steve?
So yeah, I do have a list of comments, and I'm going to just, in the interest of brevity, I'm just going to rip through them and send you all a written copy. I think the history is on the first couple of slides is generally accurate. One of the things that they note is the Arlington, the redevelopment board's role in sort of down zoning of Arlington in the 70s. I find it really ironic that the planning department was created in 1969 for the explicit purpose of expanding the tax base, as was the Arlington Redevelopment Board. That's the same reason we were created in 1971. I keep reading old papers, and I'm very curious to see why we decided to turn around and run the ball down the field in the other direction. But I'm sure there was a reason. So slide 7, which has the number 33 on the bottom, or the 7th page slide of the PDF, I disagree with the language that they've used, where they say that all multifamily parcels in Arlington and all zoning districts are non-conforming, because multifamily is allowed by special permit in R3 through R7 and B1 through B5. I think this also affects the chart on the previous slide, page 6, where they show, you know, the most nonconformities are because of use, and I think the bad assumption might, or I think that mistake might be clouding that document. I agree with the general statement about nonconformities, because there is a very significant disconnect between how certain residential district zoning is and what's actually built there, R2 in particular. I would agree with allowing multifamily housing in the R2 district, or at least amending R2 so that it matched the built environment that exists today. And finally, I'd like to just point out that the deck, makes a couple of remarks about, a tendency to emphasize process and to subject projects to a lot of scrutiny. That's not a unique character that's not something uniquely to Arlington. Back in the 70s, everybody decided to do it. All the cool kids were doing it, so we did it too. And it is one of the reasons why Massachusetts currently has a housing shortage and some of the highest costs in the nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. That's well put. Vince?
Well, I'll fully defer to Steve as far as analysis of the history of zoning in Arlington. I have nothing to add. It's an interesting document. Just two quick things. One is that I thought there were a couple of, pointed remarks about the ARB itself. Both, what the sentence that I liked was that the ARB is known to dismiss staff recommendations in favor of their own opinions, which creates unpredictability for applicants. And I think that the unpredictability is the specific thing that needs to be addressed. I don't know if this is going to end up proposing specific changes or reforms to the town of Arlington that might improve this. Is it the scope of what the ARB reviews? Is it something like the size of the ARB, or I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting topic to bring up, but then they don't necessarily take it to the next step of actually suggesting what reforms might help. I thought the recommendations, I really like them, including multifamily housing by right in R2 districts, taking the MBTA communities neighborhood multifamily district standards and applying that, bringing that into the base zoning and allowing existing non-conforming multifamily buildings to be altered or expanded by right. All of those sound great to me. So I think this is a nice document. I don't have any other comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Michelle?
Nope, don't have further comments. I also thought that was interesting, useful, and the recommendations made sense.
Thank you. Janet?
So I am also going to send some notes over via email, mostly because they're very, very detailed, very, words, very detailed, typos and similar, as opposed to extensive, substantive. I would echo much of what Vince said. I thought it was a very interesting document, particularly in the way it reflected upon the board itself, and would have liked some further thoughts on proposed thoughts or solutions to some of the challenges that were raised or pointed out regarding the board. I thought multifamily by right in R2 was a sensible place to go, and I thought the allowing existing non-conforming multifamily buildings to be altered or expanded by right was something that we should absolutely look at. So that's what I've got.
Thank you. I will pretty much echo what I already said, but I want to try to answer Vince's question a little bit about because this is about the history of the whole board and planning department. I will have to give a lot of kudos to the board and the planning department, how we work together well right now. But go back a few years. Seems like I'm the most senior one here, right? And there was some tension a ways back, and is that was addressing to that tension back then, or?
this project was well underway before I started, so I am imagining.
So I'm
that's-
assuming that's what they're talking about then, okay? And so it's not really what they're saying now. They're referring to what was before, and that was like maybe 10, 11 years ago.
That's fair, but if the tension can exist based on the composition of the board, and then the composition of the board changes and the tension goes away, then there might still be a structural issue. It's not, you can't just wait until you have the right people on the board.
That could be it, but seeing what I've experienced, I'm just going to say I think it's more personnel, a mixture of the people that was on the board and the planning department that had some friction.
And can I ask one question? I don't know if those of you who know how this is getting put together, but is it possible that the recommendations might be more of like a separate chapter that's generic to all the communities? Because the best practices might well not be Arlington specific. They might be fairly. Is that possible? Have we seen the full draft, or have we only seen the Arlington section?
No, I've seen the full draft. It's just that because this is still a working document, MAPC asked that we just share the Arlington section for right now, but it will be more, there will be more recommendations, and there's, more charts that show, like how we actually compare, with all of our zoning, with all of our development standards and all of, how we interpret basically our entire zoning code. It will have more recommendations as a region of like ways that we can collectively be better about housing production.
So would it be fair to guess that we have more layers of regulations than anyone else in the MMC?
Yes.
We can always look at it and say, this applies to us, but it doesn't apply to us, and we'll just take it when it comes.
Yes.
But I want to leave you one note saying, when I looked at the, what chart was that about the commercial space or retail space that we have available in all the communities, and I think we in Lexington is the lowest in this area for. Am I on? What page was that on? I apologize for this.
So is that the vacant storefronts?
Yeah, vacant storefront.
It's a separate agenda item.
Oh, okay. I was still stuck. That really stuck. Got me going.
Comparing us to Lexington. Important thing to do.
And okay, I don't want to get us hung up, but one last thing that the idea of harmonizing zoning between communities is not something that we do. As far as I know, there is like a national zoning atlas effort to map the different ways that zoning is. But if you look at what R2 means here in Arlington and what R2 means in Lexington, I'm sure it's not completely different, but they're not the same. And there's no aspect of this, just asking the question, that would involve communities aligning.
Not in zoning bylaws necessarily, but as we work regionally as this group, it could be something where like developing the pattern book for our ADUs, or it could be looking at different platforms that we can use to streamline the permitting process, like as a group. MAPC is able to work on behalf of the municipalities and like apply for funding for the municipalities. So there are some areas where regionally it might make sense for us to partner up on certain things with certain communities, but not that our zoning bylaws would necessarily be identical or anything like that.
And in a lot of ways, it's amazing to have local control over zoning, but in a lot of ways, you also create just such a difficult situation for anyone who's trying to build anything. And if these 15 communities, not even going beyond that, but just if these communities had the same requirements, or not even the same requirements, but just the same definitions, then life would be
It would go a long way.
a little bit more wonderful.
I am just semi-gobsmacked at that, in the fact that Watertown has both parking minimums and parking maximums. I need to read their bylaw.
All right, I'm going to move this along. This is thank you, Sarah. Next on our agenda is we want to schedule a retreat. What?
Mr. Chair, I was wondering how the board would feel about scheduling the retreat with board input over email rather than trying to decide on a date this evening, or we can try to decide on a date this evening. Just, I don't know how people feel like.
I'm okay with email.
Okay.
Can you do the town has this thing called Doodle?
Yeah, we'll do doodle.
Okay.
We'll do it.
We'll do a doodle.
Yeah, do a Doodle, okay? I finally mastered that. Look, took my son and my wife.
The same is true for the board training opportunities. I think
Yep.
what we'd like to do a little more research on what's available to you, and then we can send it out to the board, and you can evaluate, what trainings or what you'd like to see, whether we'd like to host a training or whether you'd like to attend a training. We can, try to take a poll over email for that one as well.
Great.
I'll give props to the Citizen Planner Training Collaborative.
Yes.
I've taken about a dozen of their courses, and they are totally worth it.
Excellent. Okay.
All right, now to the next one. Katie, you're back up again on vacant storefronts. This was very interesting to me, and I find it, yeah. So you want to?
I'll take Katie off the spot a little bit because I did ask her to prepare this because I figured with talking about project updates
Okay.
and with some of the properties that we identified with the Affordable Housing Overlay District, I thought somebody might have a question about the vacant stores and what are we doing, which ones do we have, and what, Katie has been very patient with all of my questions about the vacant storefront bylaw because I'm constantly pointing out properties on my drive to work and sending pictures to Katie and saying why. Katie, I would be happy to have you explain.
Sure. So, I know you are all pretty familiar with our vacant storefront bylaw. It's taken a couple of years since I started, but now everything's kind of on a similar timeline for enforcement, which makes everything a lot easier. So in this memo, I kind of just outline, I'm not going to read it verbatim or anything like that. I just kind of outline how I do the whole thing, which is mostly using CoStar. We have a subscription, so real estate software. Occasionally I'll ask Sarah to help me out with her other real estate tricks and tips. And also just, I guess you could say, boots on the ground observations. I've also included the information I request from property owners when I send out the vacant storefront letters, which is primarily to register the property. Schedule a town review is a new request that Sarah has kindly offered to suggest to sit down with property owners, which is a great idea. So we're now requesting that these property owners schedule a mandatory meeting with us to present their maintenance and tenancy plans, if they have one. And then probably most importantly, which is to secure and maintain the sites. This was a particularly prevalent with 366 Mass Ave, and also talking about how we don't allow plywood with 1306, 1308. As I mentioned, the vacant storefront fee is valid for a year, so they all pretty much just expired unless there's a new property that kind of pops up throughout the year. I provided a list of who I'm currently enforcing the bylaw with. There's a couple of properties that are either under construction, or I know that they have a lease underway, or I've sent a letter because I would like to learn more information about the lease that is being claimed to be underway. But a lot of, I'll say, familiar addresses on here. And then I've also included photos, and then as Chairman Lau was pointing out. Just to provide some greater regional context, I provided some of the numbers, the really fun and interesting chart comparing our submarkets. So our Arlington submarket, these are all pre-assigned, but we've been looped in with Lexington and Belmont and a little bit of Weston. And it is interesting to see that we have the lowest relative vacancy rate to our neighbors. And I'll just note that the market asking rent is just an average, so it's varied quite a bit. But here also to just like answer any questions or other properties that you've been also taking pictures of and eyeing. Sarah, is there anything else you wanted me to highlight?
Well, something that I think the board could consider talking about perhaps in the future is with Katie, how are we doing with this bylaw, the vacant storefront bylaw? Like, are we finding it to be effective? Is this incentivizing, or maybe not incentivizing, but is this encouraging property owners to then do something with their property, or is it just they pay the $400 and call it a day, and we're just like, is there anything else the redevelopment board or the town can do to encourage our neighbors?
I think I'll also say that the actual fee is up to the discretion of the select board. And if you as the redevelopment board would like to increase the fee, I would love you to consider that. I don't know if $400 has really proven to be a motivating amount. It's really just intended to cover staff time, but could argue it's not quite enough, but food for thought.
I think in the interest of time, let's table this. If you have any comments on this, let's bring it up at the retreat or send Katie your questions. I don't want to get out here at 10:30. Did not intend for this to run this long, but it's been a good night.
Yeah.
Any new business? No one?
I'll save it for next time.
Thank you. Seeing no new business, can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you for time.
Vote on motion to adjourn.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
Yes.
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 Yes.